hopefully catch some of you if you missed this morning. Hopefully you won't be too lost as we continue on. Now, we look at Genesis chapter 1. God created the dog kind. So God created, we believe, at least 2 dogs. And those 2 dogs would have all the genetic information to make all the dogs today, which is scientifically reasonable, and actually pretty much scientifically been demonstrated. Before the flood, these creatures were supposed to be fruitful, multiply, and fill the earth, so we would have all kinds of variations of dogs before the flood to fit all these different environments. Then along came the flood. Only 2 dogs got on board the ark. These dogs would have the genetic information to produce all the dogs we have today, and that has been pretty much demonstrated. That's not a problem. And what we see is all different kinds of dogs. We got foxes, we'll talk about that, and dingoes, and these are just, all these different variations of dogs is coming from the original dogs. So the dog kind doesn't change, but species will change. Bible proclaims that. Yes. But what natural selection is no friend to evolution. Natural selection only reduces the genetic diversity. Natural selection weeds out the genes that do not work in certain environments. So as it weeds out the genes from certain creatures or kinds, it gets them to fit or defined to fit very well in that environment. But those creatures, what we would call in farming, would be more of a purebred. When you're dealing with purebreds, they have a reduction of genetic diversity. When you reproduce the same purebred with the same purebred, you always get that purebred. You don't get anything else. Because you actually got rid of all the other genes to produce other types of dogs. Are you all with me? Yes. Okay, I worked with this all the time when I was on the farm. So none of this is nothing new. I worked with it. It was all demonstratable. What was so exciting is what I was working with was already proclaimed in Genesis 6,000 years ago. That's what got me so excited. Yes. Now, we're talking about, when we take a look at this information, we do not observe evolution. Now, the evolution they're talking about here is macroevolution. We have never seen one kind of creature change into a completely different kind of creature, have we? What do bacteria always change into? Bacteria. They never change into anything else. We know that science. We've been studying that for decades. And we're going to talk more about that. Yes, bacteria always do. All bacteria do is be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. That's all they do. Everything uses biblical principles because that's how they've been programmed. Yes. What about missing links? You've heard of missing links, right? Transitional forms, creatures that are half this and half that. According to the Bible, there are no missing links. You will never find missing links because everything reproduces after their own kind. So what are they finding out there in the fossil record? Well, the Bible tells us what they will find if you understand Genesis. But because they don't understand Genesis, they make up some blunders in these missing links. All right, we'll take a look at it. The question is, what is a missing link? Well, we have spoons and we have forks. That means there has to be something missing between a spoon and a fork for this to evolve into that. Are you all with me? Have we found the missing links? Yeah, we have. We got sporks. You put them in there, they're half spoon and half fork. That's the missing link. Yeah, well, where did rats come from? Well, I was taught in college and high school rats came from lizards. Yeah, so you got a lizard-like creature here, and it's supposed to evolve into a rat. Well, we have lizards today. We have lizards in the fossil record. We have rats today, and guess what we have in the fossil record? Rats. All these missing links are supposed to be half lizard and half rat. Yes. Well, let's look at missing links. Here we have a recently discovered. Did you know they have discovered a missing link? I'm wrong after all. I'll show you a missing link. It's a classical missing link. Right there, there's a missing link. That birds came from reptiles. What are you laughing at? You go to museums, you'll see the same thing. You'll see birds that have a reptile head on it. Interesting. You go to museums and say, oh, that's all kind of scientific. Well, do they find these creatures looking just like that? They just find a pile of bones that are pretty badly decayed. No, people laugh at this. When I show this picture, people laugh at this. You know why people laugh at this? Because they know missing links don't exist. Deep down inside, people know missing links don't exist. This is just Photoshop. What's this? Artwork. Same thing. What you see in museums is a lot of artwork, but artwork is not science, is it? We're going to go into more detail on this. Yes. Well, But they say creatures are similar. A man has a hand similar to that of a dog, which is similar to that of a hand of a monkey, which is similar to that of a leg or a wing of a bat. That means they must have similarities. That means we almost go back to a common ancestor. That's what I was taught, homology. Well, this whole chart is based on similar characteristics. Why do they put monkeys up by man? Why don't they put fish up by man and put monkeys down here? Because we have more similarities with who? Or what? Monkeys. This chart is all built on similar characteristics. Well, let's take a look at similar characteristics. Do you know we have similar characteristics with animals? Do you know we have similar characteristics with plants? Is it because we all go back to a common ancestor? Is that why we have similar characteristics? No, there's a far more scientific reason why we have similar characteristics. Here we have 3 pieces of furniture. I don't know if can we dim these lights here maybe? Yeah, thank you. You need to see these 3 pieces of furniture. Yes, there we go, thank you. This piece of furniture is very simple. This piece of furniture is a little more complex. This piece of furniture is highly complex. Now they all have similar characteristics. These 2 here have doors. These 2 here have drawers, and all 3 of them have shelves. They all have similar characteristics. That means they must come from a common ancestor, right? Did that wood evolve in this piece of furniture, then evolve in this one, then finally into that highly complex piece of furniture? Is that what they have in common? What do they have in common? A common designer. Yes. You have a common designer who takes the basic building blocks of making furniture and making all kinds of different furniture. That's me just a few days ago. You don't recognize me? Well, there's Abby. That's a long time ago. She's already got a little boy about her size. I build furniture for a hobby. I draw up my own blueprints when I build my furniture. With a few changes of blueprints, guess what you get? Different pieces of furniture. It's exactly what we see in biology. We see no evidence of a common ancestor at all. What we see is a common designer taking the basic building blocks of life and making a few changes, getting all kinds of different creatures to adapt them into the environment he wants to place them in. Yes. We have giant pandas and red pandas. At one time, they thought giant pandas and red pandas were supposed to be related. They both had an extra thumb, they had a V-shaped jaw, they had similar teeth, they had similar skull. They must be related because they have similarities. Then they studied DNA, they discovered they're not related at all. These are related to bears and these are related to raccoons. If you look at similar characteristics, can you make a lot of mistakes? Yeah, lots of mistakes. They're only dealing with bones. A thumb has a bone, the V-shaped jaw, that's a bone. Similar teeth, that's kind of a bone structure, similar skull. You know when we look at bones, there's not a lot of information there. We're going to talk about that. When they look at the soft tissue, like the DNA and so on, the soft tissue tells them they're not even related. We're going to talk more about that. Very important information. Now, similarities in bones and teeth, there's not a lot of information there, but in the soft anatomy, they're not related. This shows they're related, this shows they're not related. Interesting. Then we have the platypus. I think that creature was made specifically for the evolutionary philosophy. This creature has a bill like a duck, has a tail like a beaver, has feet like an otter, has hair like a bear, has claws like a reptile, lays eggs like a turtle, it has spurs like a rooster. The question is, what is this creature evolving from and what is it evolving into? It's a mosaic creature. It's a strange creature. This is from Discover magazine, evolutionary magazine. The platypus genome is a mashup. Oh, take a close at it. This creature has reptilian genes, avian or bird genes, and mammal genes. When I was studying about the platypus, as far as I know, they didn't evolve from birds. So what are they doing with bird genes if they didn't come from birds? Interesting. No, that didn't fit with what I was taught in evolution. No, but we go on. The platypus, it looks like a car that was built on Friday. They just put the parts they had left to put it together. It's like God was running out of time on day 6. We spend too much time, God. So he grabbed a bunch of parts from all these different creatures and put them together. Boom, there's the platypus. Just in time. We've got to make man now. That's what it looks like. Do you know you're a platypus? You got genes that are identical to zebrafish. You got genes that are identical to bananas. Did you know 50% of your genes are banana genes? How many of you are bananas? We're not even going to go to the nuts. We'll leave the nuts out of this. That might explain a few things. You see what I mean? What we see in the DNA is it's like this big warehouse of all these different genes to make all the different organisms in the world. Guy comes in there, he's going to make a bacteria. Take some genes here, put it together, there's a bacteria. He's going to make a dog. He takes genes from all over, makes a dog. He's going to make a man. He takes some monkey genes. He takes some rat genes. He takes some other genes and put it together. There's a human being. Isn't that interesting? We don't see evidence of a common ancestor at all. We see evidence of a common designer. We see that all the time. All cars are pretty similar, aren't they? Did one car evolve from another car? No, they got different blueprints. You can't go from one car to another car. Otherwise, you got to change everything. I like to work on vehicles. With my kids, I have to take care of roughly 9 vehicles. Is that a job? Yes, that's a job. Yeah. They're not getting better, people. Vehicles are breaking down. I can tell you that, yes. But you go to evolutionary museums and they'll show you dinosaurs evolving into birds. Have they actually observed this? No, this has never been observed. What do we call this? It's all artwork. Science doesn't deal with artwork. Yes. Getting under a dinosaur's skin. Let's take a look at dinosaurs. Paleontologists designate dinosaur species by bones alone. Because when you're looking at the fossils, guess what you mostly find? Bones. Not always. Now we have all kinds of soft tissue, and when we found the soft tissue, birds and dinosaurs, they're not related at all. But many modern animal species, those are animal species today, are defined by their skin or feathers and cannot be distinguished solely by their bones. We've got all kinds of creatures living today. If you look at their bone structures, they look very, very similar. But on their soft tissue, they are very, very different. We don't look at bones to distinguish different species today, but they look in the fossil record. Oh, they do. No. You see where I'm at? Wow. Now, most of the time they find just the bones turning to stone. But once in a while we find soft tissue. This is one of the dinosaurs that were supposed to evolve into birds. But in this case, they found the soft tissue. The breathing mechanism of this creature is similar to that of modern crocodiles and completely different from that of birds. It goes on. The windpipe and the colon basically didn't have anything to do with birds. It's completely different. Here was another one. This one right here. This is supposed to be one of the missing links to lead to birds. They discovered the internal organs. They discovered the internal organs were completely different than birds, but similar to that of crocodiles. You've heard all this information, right? They teach this to you, right? Why don't they reveal this information to you? If they really want to promote science, wouldn't they tell you this? Doesn't science deal with knowledge and so on? I find that I was never taught this information. I was only taught what they want to teach me. Because they want me to think their thoughts. They want me to think their way. I decided I'm not going to think their way. I'm going to think God's way. It's much better than their way. We see their way. I've been to Russia. I know the outcome of their thoughts. It's a disaster, and we don't want to go there. I'm fearful of this country because they want to go that way. It's a disaster. We know it's a disaster. Now, look at the bone structure of birds. Birds have fixed femurs. They have them so their lungs don't collapse. Dinosaurs do not. So there's a lot of differences between dinosaurs and birds. Yes. This one here, well, some of these birds, or some of these missing links, half bird, half dinosaur, are supposed to have protofeathers. Have you heard about that? Well, this is from Alan Fiducia. He's an evolutionist. The hair-like filaments that accompany some fossils, that's these right here, come from beneath the skin. Where do you find feathers? Below the skin. I used to farm. I used to raise chickens. I know where the feathers are at. They're not below the skin. They're above the skin. I can duplicate the effect of skinning the tail of a modern lizard. It's probably just collagen fossilizing, or bacteria. I was in a museum in Houston, Texas. I saw a dinosaur that had the same filaments on its fossils, and this dinosaur did not evolve into birds. It was a sauropod. Whoa, that's a big problem. So a lot of this is just vain imaginations. We take a look at living creatures. We see variation of a theme. We see all these similarities. Why? Because of a common designer with a common design. We see that all the time. Yes. Well, we won't go into that. We'll jump over that. No. But going on here, we had Ida. Ida was supposed to be a missing link. This is supposed to be your great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother. According to the Bible, there are no missing links. But they said it was a missing link. But using the information from the Bible, right away we could tell that was false. It was not a missing link. Because the Bible says there's no missing links. So using this superior information, we can tell them they are wrong. And guess what? They were wrong. All they found was a variation of a lemur. Now, if these genes of these creatures did not go on board the ark, what happened to these variations of lemurs? They went extinct. You know what we find in the fossil record? We just find variations of lemurs, and some of those went extinct because the genes were lost during the flood or shortly after the flood. You won't find them today because the genes are lost. Are you all with me here? Well, the Bible predicts you will find variations of monkeys, you will find variations of humans, you will find variations of lemurs. Some of these have gone extinct, some of the genes have been lost, so we won't see them today. That's what you will find. And guess what they find? They find variations of lemurs. That's all it was. Artie, supposed to be your great-great-grandmother. Well, that can't be true because there's no missing links. Well, it turns out she's basically a monkey. Just a variation of monkey that's been lost. Lost the genes. That's all it was. No. Coelacanths. Coelacanths were supposed to be creatures that are half fish and half amphibian. When they looked at the fossil record, they had all these big stories, swimming in shallow seas, walking on land, flippers evolving into legs, gills evolving into lungs. When they found that creature alive, they were 100% wrong. It was a complete blunder. If they were using the Bible, they would say, oh, it's just a strange fish. And it is. It's a strange fish. But guess what it is? It's a strange fish. Some kinds have probably gone extinct because of the flood and shortly after the flood. Then there's Tiktaalik. This is another one of those half fish and half amphibians. They said, oh, missing link. Came out with all kinds of stories, and then they found fossils of amphibians below this strange fish. So can this creature be a missing link? No, it can't be. Amphibians were already here before this creature was. Well, they're all basically made on the same day or a couple of days. Are you all with me here? Using the information in Scripture, we can condemn false knowledge. And this is all false knowledge so far. Platypus, can you imagine what they would say if they found that fossilized? Wow, they can come up with all kinds of stories. Then we have Neanderthal man. Caveman. That's what they thought Neanderthals looked like at one time? That was all art. Did they find Neanderthal man looking just like that? Is that what they found? No. You know, hunched over, licking his hammer, not looking very bright, right? That's all artwork. There's no science here at all. There's no science. That's just banging imagination. That's all it is. With new research, they discovered this is probably what the Neanderthal man looked like. Straighten him up, put him in a suit and tie, comb his hair, virtually go unrecognized in a crowd of people. I don't know if you've been realizing it, but I like to study human genetics. I look at human genes. Well, I don't really look at the genes. I look at the outcome of human genes. I look for Neanderthals. I've been studying your skulls. Did you know that? I've been looking at your skulls. Now, don't look at your friend or spouse and say, did I marry a Neanderthal or not? If you look around, you will find Neanderthals. They are there. They're not very many. I've seen people with sloping foreheads. I've seen people with bigger eyebrow ridges. I've seen people with big jaws. Just because you have a big jaw or a sloping forehead or big eyebrow, does that mean you're not quite human? Do you know if you go to the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C., go to where the Nazis, they would measure jaws to see if they were evolved or not? Wow. The whole thing of Nazi Germany is all built on evolution. If you want to know the outcome of evolution, study Nazi Germany. They lived it. And it's horrible. What made me so upset is when I went through the Holocaust Museum, I came out of there upset because they never got to the root of the cause of what caused that. They never did. I was so sad. Because if you don't get to the root of the cause, history will repeat itself. And is it repeating itself? It is. It's repeating itself. Wow. Because I've seen people with jaws that go like this. Does that mean a person who has a jaw like this is more evolved than my jaw? No, it's just God has a good sense of humor. He comes up with all different kinds of genes for humans. Yeah. So this is all been. Did you know actually the skull of a Neanderthal is larger than modern human skulls? Do you know their brains were also larger? And according to recent research on studies of humans, you know our brains are not getting better or bigger. Our brains are actually getting smaller. They are. We peaked out with the Neanderthals And now we're on the downhill slide. Interesting. Yeah. Well, this is a book by Michael Denton. Evolution, a Theory in Crisis. Now, he is not a creationist. He's an evolutionist. This is from his book. He's got a new book out. I need to read a new book, just a continuation of this one. In his book here, The Systematic Stasis and Biological Affinity. What's affinity? Affinity is, in biology, a relationship or a resemblance in structure between species that suggests a common origin. Basically, looking at similarities, they're trying to get a common origin, common ancestor. You all with me here? He goes on. Affinity of a fossil organism is far more difficult to establish than in the case of a living form. Why is this more difficult than this? And can never be established with any certain degree of certainty. Why? Why can you not really get any relationship with the fossils of any degree of certainty? Well, it's because, to begin with, 99% of the biology of any organism resides in the soft anatomy. Basically, if you had a whole skeleton of a creature, that's only 1%. Is that a lot of information? 1%? That's 1 cent on a dollar. What would you sooner have? 99 cents or 1 cent? Only when they have a whole skeleton, all the information they have to work with is 1%. Is that a lot of information? With Lucy, with new research, she's only had about 28% of 1%. She only had 28% of a skeleton. 28%, that's all the work, 28% of a skeleton. That means they're only working with basically 0.28%. That's not a lot of information. So where's all this information come about that Lucy's a missing link? It's not from the science, it's from their speculation. Everything about Lucy was basically mostly speculation. Because where's the information? It's in the soft. What makes you unique is in the soft tissue. You don't have a lot of that with bones, do you? Are you taught this stuff? You're not. If you're really pushing science, this is what you push. Science deals with knowledge, does it not? That's what I deal with. I deal with knowledge, observational evidence, and so on. I don't deal with speculation. That's not science. And Lucy, did you know some of the vertebrae they found with Lucy, they now think are baboon vertebrae? It's from a different creature. The knee, actually, they were using to support that, actually from a human. Basically, they put humans and baboons and some strange monkey that went extinct, and they'd say that's your ancestry. Lucy has actually been debunked. She's not your great-great-great-grandmother anymore. According to new science, she's out in some dead-end branch over there. Wow. Yeah. There is not enough observational evidence in the fossil record to establish Lucy as a missing link. Scientists do not have evidence if he or she, her species, left any offspring. Do we know that she left offspring? Actually, with new research, it's probably not a she, it's a he. Wow. Yes. The only way they thought it was a she because it was very small. Because if it was a he, it wouldn't fit at all in the evolutionary process. So they thought, well, it has to be a female. Hip structure says, well, it probably couldn't have offspring. They may have just gone extinct like so many species today. That's what we see. We see species going extinct all the time. They're not evolving into something else. We never see something evolving into something else. Interesting. This is an evolutionary book. You see all these solid bars. You see all these solid bars. These are distinct variations, or not variations, but different kinds of birds. You have all these dotted lines connect all these birds to this bird here. Well, the question is, what do the solid lines mean and what do the dotted lines mean? Well, with signing a contract or reading evolutionary books, you always have to read the small print. It's very important. This is what they say. The solid bars show the known fossil record of a group. So these are all known fossil. These are observational. All these different kinds of birds. What are the dotted lines? The dotted lines denote the possible. Do you see that possible evolutionary relationship between groups? All these dotted lines, they're put there for your viewing enjoyment only. This is all artwork. We see all just distinct kinds. All this is, they don't find. If evolution is true, they should find millions and billions of missing links. Millions and billions of them. They can't find one good one. This is another one. This one's on dinosaurs. The evolution of dinosaurs. Got all these red bars. What do the white ones mean? Well, you look right down here. The tinted, the red ones, they show this, indicate solid fossil evidence. This is solid fossil evidence. What's the white stuff? That is no solid fossil evidence, just what? Imagination. I don't deal with imagination. I deal with science. Oh. Look at this. Through Scripture, this is what we've just come together with Scripture. What do you got these solid trees here with branches so the creatures can adapt to different environments. Does this not look like that? What we find in Bible and what we find in science goes totally together, fits together perfectly. Eliminate all this non-scientific stuff as we go on. God created everything perfect, but after the fall of Adam, there would be a corruption of genetic information caused by mutations. God does everything perfect, does he not? So the creatures would be perfect, and now we're on a downhill slide. We're genetically falling apart. I get that from Genesis chapter 3. Guess what we come across with science? Well, what do we see? There's a deterioration and or loss of organs and other body parts over time. Are we seeing that? Are we having a deterioration of body parts because of loss of genetic information? Yeah, we are. This is what we call, through mutations, we have a gene depletion. Mutations cause gene depletion, or genetic information being lost. Yes. See, according to evolution, we all came from goo. If this goo is going to evolve into mankind, we've got to have an explosion of new genetic information to make brains, to make skulls, to make bones, to make lungs, so on. Are you all with me here? Because bacteria doesn't have any of this. So where's that going to come from? It's got to be an increase of new genetic information through mutations, and it's also have to duplicate genes so they can mutate to make genetic information. Just getting more genes is not very good. Now, we actually have more than, right now I have 8 born grandchildren right now. In a few months, I'm going to have 10. I can't wait. But actually, I have more than that. I have some in heaven. I've got a granddaughter that died at birth. She had trisomy 18. Any of you know, remember trisomy 18? It's not good. She's had too many number 18 chromosomes. Having more genes is not good. It messes up the system. Down syndrome is, I think, trisomy 21 or 13. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think cleft palate is trisomy something too, if I remember right. Getting new genes is not good. More genes so they can mutate and get more information. Are you with me? People die when they have too many chromosomes. My daughter died. We know more chromosomes are not good. Wow. Yeah. Well, let's take a look at mutations. This is all false. Mutations don't come up with new genetic information. What do mutations do? We all know this. Duplication of genetic information, loss of genetic information, deregulation of genetic information, and they cause aging. Yeah. Fruit flies, they did all kinds of experiments with fruit flies. They bombarded them with chemicals and radiation. They got tens of thousands of mutations. They got fruit flies with curved wings. They got fruit flies with no wings. They got fruit flies with 2 pairs of wings, but these fruit flies couldn't fly. The best fruit fly was the fruit fly that didn't have any of the mutations. But guess what they always got? Fruit flies. They never changed anything else. Fruit flies staying fruit flies is not evolution, is it? Actually, what they found is devolution. They were getting worse as they increased in mutations. Yes. Mutations are rare, and they are. Most mutations are harmful or neutral. Yes, but it's the beneficial mutations are the raw material for natural selection. Are you all grasping that? Mutations are bad, but they're supposed to what? Make us better. Does that make sense? No. Mutations cause a loss of genetic information. They never cause an increase in genetic information. It's always a loss. You know, it's like this steer. He has 5 legs. He's got 4 on the ground, 1 on his back. Is that a better steer? Can you run faster with 5 legs instead of 4? There's a duplication of genetic information. It's best for the farmer. He's got another chunk of beef to sell at market now. Oh. And then this one's a loss of genetic information. We call him TNR. Now, we didn't take this rooster and pull all the feathers out of him. That's the way he hatched from the egg. Now, is that a good mutation? For the poultry farmer, it is. They're raising these chickens, so now they don't have to pluck them. But they have to take very good care of them, otherwise they die. Interesting. They call him TNR. Why do they call him TNR? Stands for totally naked rooster. Huh. And then this bird has the opposite problem. That's a bird. His feathers keep growing. He's got a deregulation mutation. They just keep growing and growing. Oh, these are the mutant feathers, and these are the normal. Is that good for birds? Just to have feathers growing? No, not at all. I was taught in college, blind cavefish is excellent evidence of evolution. Well, let's take a look at it. Here's the blind cavefish, and this is the cousin to the blind cavefish. This one has eyes, this one doesn't. Well, what's the deal? Well, there's a mutation on the blind cavefish. It had a mutation on where it makes its eyes, on the genes where it makes eyes. So when this fish is developing in the egg, fish egg, it comes to a point where it's got to develop the eye. The lens is supposed to develop. It's lost the genetic information to make the lens of the eye. So the whole eye process shuts down because it's lost the eye lens. So it just scar tissue goes over the eye. Are you all with me? But in a cave where there's no light, do you need eyes? No. Actually, this is a beneficial. I'm not against beneficial mutations. We do see that. But they don't make things better. In a cave, if he bumps, you can watch these cavefish, they'll bump into rocks. So they bump into a rock and with the scar tissue that protects the eye. But if this fish was in the cave, get its eye cut, bacteria could get in and could die. So in a cave where there's no light, this is a beneficial mutation. But is it a better fish? No, it's lost genetic information. You take this fish and put it in this fish's environment, this fish is shark bait. It doesn't know where to hide, can't see the predators or anything like that. Are you with me here? Actually, what we see is a loss of genetic information. It's not getting new genetic information, it's losing it. This is what we call devolution. It is devolving. They got to explain how those eyes got there in the first place, and they don't have an explanation scientifically. We're not getting this way, we're going this way. If you lose too many body parts, what's going to happen to a creature? The eyes, the head. Doesn't last very long, do you, when you start losing too many body parts? This is the opposite of evolution. This is devolution. It's getting worse, and we know that scientifically. We are genetically falling apart. We know that. Yes. What do mutations cause? Birth defects. We know that. I work with that on the farm. It causes cancer. We know that. Diseases. I've worked with that on the farm. Death. Yeah, I work with aging. Yeah, I'm experiencing it. But aging is not always so bad. You're probably saying, what? The older I get, the more grandchildren I get. It's a win-win situation in my viewpoint. Yeah. But things just don't work as well. Yes. Genetic entropy. Highly recommend this book if you're into genetics. Entropy means disorder. Basically, going through this information, the primary axiom of Darwinian evolution is evolution proceeds by random mutations and natural selection. Well, if we go through that, mutational entropy, that's disorder, appears to be so strong within large genomes that selection cannot reverse it. What does that mean? We're going into extinction, people. If we continue on, our genes are going to be so bad, we're going to have more diseases, more problems, more defects, so on. We're headed for extinction. Unless something is done, things are going to get worse because every generation is having more and more mutations. It's called a genetic load. It's not good news. Yeah, so it goes on. Mutations, selection cannot even stop the loss of genetic information, let alone create a genome. We can't even stop our genes from falling apart. Actually, your genes know mutations are bad. You've got mechanisms on your genetic information to correct mutations because we know mutations are bad. Our body knows mutations are bad. If that mechanism breaks down, you come down with cancer. Natural selection can only slow down the deterioration of the genetic information. That's all natural selection can do, just slow it down. Can't stop it. We go on. It should be very clear that our genome could not have arisen spontaneously. We know that scientifically. It will not happen. The only reasonable alternative to spontaneous genome is a what? Designed genome. When you look at your DNA, there's the only conclusion there is it has to be designed. It screams out design and engineering. Yes. What it is our genome, our genetic damage results in aging, and aging causes shortened. Do we see that in Scripture? Yes, we do. Here's these two mice of the same age. This mouse has more mutations, so it's aging faster. You look at the Bible. Before the flood, man lived to be 900 years old. Then the flood happened, that water canopy collapsed, increase in mutations. What happens to aging? What we find in Scripture fits perfectly with what we see in science. Did you know that? Now, everybody comes from one man and one woman. Question is, where did Cain get his wife? He had a wife. Who was she? Sister. No problem, because back in Cain's day, genes were pretty perfect. They can marry close relatives, not a problem. Abraham married his half-sister. That's a pretty close relative. Genes were still pretty good at Abraham's time. But at the time of Moses, mutations in our bodies reached a level where it's no longer feasible to marry a close relative. Because if we would marry close relatives today, what would happen? Birth defects. I knew that. I dealt with farming. If I did too much interbreeding with my livestock, you know what would show up? Birth defects, diseases, death. We're not getting better, people. We're getting worse. What does the Bible say? We're not getting better, we're getting worse. What does evolution say? We're getting better. What? That doesn't fit with science. That's why I call evolution pseudoscience, because it doesn't fit with what we observe at all. And what time do I have to quit this hour? 10:45? 10 till. Okay, thank you. I forgot to ask that question before I started. Okay, good. And we're not getting very far. I got this long-winded speaker, just, man, I don't know. So this increase of new genetic information to mutations that get from amoebas to man is all false. That's all been scientifically debunked. We know that through science. I deal with science. I don't deal with speculation. This is all spilled on speculation. Yes. Let's go with species. I like this one. Evolution is defined as a change in species over time. Well, the question is, what's a species? A species is a group of organisms that share similar characteristics and can be interbreed with one another to produce fertile offspring. Okay, let's take a look at that. Change in species over time is not Darwinian evolution, is it? If finches stay finches, is that Darwinian evolution? What's Darwinian evolution? Any of you know? When finches change into something that's completely not a finch, that is Darwinian evolution. Are you all with me? This is what they have to demonstrate. If they cannot demonstrate that, that's a false philosophy, okay? Change in kind over time, or family type over time, that's macro, that's Darwinian evolution. So you have to change a kind. Dogs change into something that is no longer a dog. That's Darwinian evolution. To be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth is change in species over time. That's change in species right there. The Bible predicted change in species 6,000 years ago. Darwin was ignorant of this scientific knowledge in Genesis chapter 1. Did you know that? They were ignorant of it. Dogs stay dogs.